This is Dimitri Johnson, and you're listening to MMALatestNews.com.
It's time to roll, baby.
Hello and welcome back to MMA Latest News. My name is James Sweet and we've got a brilliant show for you today. We're going to be talking all about UFC 242, which is going to be headlined by Khabib Nurmagomedov, headlining against Dustin Poirier. We're going to talk about BJ Penn's Brawl, UFC China, which happened over the weekend, Anthony Johnson's potential return at heavyweight, and Ryan Bader defending his title this weekend. And if you have anything you need to ask me, make sure you stick it in the comments and I'll reply to it at the end of the video. Now, we're going to kick things off with this weekend's main event in Abu Dhabi. Khabib defending his title against Poirier. And I think it's a great fight for the division. I think Khabib has to go in the favourite. He's been absolutely unbelievable throughout his entire time at the UFC. He's 27-0 for a reason. Nobody's been able to stay on the feet, and he's taken everybody down with relative ease. Of course, it's going to be a big test to see just how much of a market value he's got. Coming off the biggest pay-per-view of all time against Conor McGregor, you're going to think that a lot of McGregor fans will now be Khabib fans, especially after what Khabib did at the end of the fight, which got the whole world talking, of course, when he jumped over the cage and insulted one of Conor McGregor's teammates. Dustin Poirier comes into this as a very worthy challenger. He struggled a bit at featherweight, but when he moved up to lightweight, he's been absolutely brilliant. He's beaten Anthony Pettis, he's beaten Justin Gaethje, he's beaten Eddie Alvarez, and last time out in a fight which not too many people gave him a chance against, he beat Max Holloway, and he looked absolutely terrific in doing that. And with Tony Ferguson spending a bit of time out the cage, I think Poirier is the best option for Khabib. Dustin Poirier is a person that I think a lot of us in the MMA community have got behind. He's a real throwback fighter. He'll fight any man, anytime, any place. And his journey's been inspirational. He's had so many setbacks time and time again. Of course, when he lost in the featherweight division to Conor McGregor, it looked like maybe he'll never get a world title shot. When he stepped up to lightweight, things didn't go his way when he lost to Michael Johnson. But since then, he's put so many good victories back to back, and in all of these fights, he's always exciting. So a lot of us are rooting for Dustin Poirier, and he's probably the closest thing to Michael Bisping we've had in recent times in terms of somebody just simply not being able to give up on their dream. So a lot of the MMA community will want Dustin Poirier to do it, but it's such a tough ask against Khabib. As I said, there's a reason he's undefeated. Nobody's been able to stay on the feet. Can Dustin do it? Maybe. He's obviously got a huge striking advantage. His boxing is far better than Khabib. And what he does have is one-shot knockout power. Dustin Poirier, if he can hit Khabib, Khabib will probably go. Does he have the wrestling to stop Khabib from taking him down? I don't think so. His jiu-jitsu's good. I don't think it's unbelievable. I think if Khabib is sloppy on the ground, Dustin might be able to find a submission from somewhere. But let's face it, Khabib isn't sloppy on the ground. He's one of the very best there is from the wrestling aspect. So I make Khabib a favourite going into this one, but I don't want to write Dustin Poirier off. It's in Abu Dhabi, which I think is interesting for the UFC. The UFC obviously just coming off that China that they just did at the weekend. And I think more and more contests are going to take place in the Middle East. Of course, in the world of boxing, Anthony Joshua versus Andrade, that event's taking place in Saudi Arabia. The WWE are constantly in Saudi Arabia. There's so much money in that part of the world. So it doesn't surprise me that Dana White's trying to build some stars out there. Anyway, moving on to the co-main event. Paul Felder will take on Edson Barboza in a rematch. Of course, Barboza winning the first one. It's difficult to predict who's going to win this one. I think that Barboza is probably the slightly more naturally talented man. We see how good he is with his kicks. They truly are incredible. But he's fallen on hard times of late. He's lost 3 of his last 4. His last defeat was a really bad one to Justin Gaethje. He was sparked in the first round in quite bad fashion. Paul Felder is coming off a victory, one of the best in his career, against James Vick. So we could say that he's coming into this one with the momentum on his side, but Barboza's extremely talented. He won the first fight, and he'll fancy himself to win again. I'm not going to write Paul Felder off, but I'll make Barboza an ever so slight favourite if the Gaethje loss hasn't ruined his career too badly. Anyway, next up, we're going to be talking a bit about BJ Penn, one of the greatest lightweights to have ever lived. Has fallen on hard times with the UFC. He hasn't won a fight in years. He keeps going out there. He keeps losing. And I respect that he's a true legend of the sport, but I don't like the fact that Dana White keeps giving him fights because every punch he takes will add to that brain damage. It's not a healthy sport to be in when you get to the age that BJ Penn is, especially when you're losing every single fight you have. There was footage of him a few months ago in a Brawl, and there's been another one in Hawaii, and there's two videos. There's one of which he's ground and pounding a man, and the second is him getting knocked out. He gets up, but he went down very hard. I'm led to believe that the second video released of him getting knocked down is the first one. So apparently a man has been harassing him at a bar. He's borderline stalking him because he sees BJ all the time and constantly tries to harass him, constantly tries to get a bite out of him. And this time BJ's bit. He defended the initial takedown, but then he was knocked down by a street thug. And that's not what you want to see from BJ Penn. Yes, he went on to win this bar brawl when he pinned him down and started landing some ground and pound. And of course, BJ's had a drink. It's all kicked off. It can happen in bars. But BJ's better than this. He shouldn't be getting involved with fights with people who are so far below his level. And I know it's quite basic to say, but if you're losing on the street, you shouldn't really be in a cage. It's worrying times for BJ Penn. I'm seriously getting worried about where he is mentally because he shouldn't be rising to this sort of bait. And is he just fighting because he wants that sense of victory? He's not getting in the cage. Can he get it outside of it? It's a dangerous time for BJ Penn, and I'm seriously worried about him. Ideally, I'd like to see him finally retire from the sport. He's gone on for so long. He's got nothing left to prove. His record is 16 wins, 14 defeats, and if he's not careful, those losses are going to pile up and he'll have more losses than wins. That's not what we want to see from somebody who will be in the Hall of Fame and an all-time great like BJ Penn. Anyway, moving on to UFC China, and Weili Zhang is now officially the women's strawweight champion. And I said last week that Dana White will be desperate for a world champion. Knew what was coming, knocked Andrade out, and I think it only took her about 40-odd seconds to get the job done. And wow, she's now officially the best strawweight on the planet, and that cannot be argued with. Who's she going to fight next? You've got to look at the likes of Joanna Jędrzejczyk, if she can get past Michelle Waterson. Of course, Michelle Waterson also comes from Asian descent, so that would be a huge Asian super fight. We know in Japan, when they used to have the K1 days and Pride, they'd fill up huge stadiums. And maybe Waterson versus Zhang can do that out in Asia. If not, there's also Tatiana Suarez waiting in the wings. It's an interesting time for the UFC strawweight division. And of course, Rose Namajunas, if she doesn't retire, she's probably the most talented out of the lot, and I wouldn't mind seeing her have another shot at glory if she can get her head in the right place. Anyway, moving on now to the next bout that we're going to be talking about, and it's Anthony Johnson making his return, potentially at heavyweight. Now, his manager has told ESPN that he's willing to return at the maximum weight class. And if anyone's been keeping up with Anthony Johnson's social media, you'll see that he's about the same size of the Hulk. He's been working extremely hard on his physique, and he is absolutely massive. Now, I felt his retirement from the sport came a little bit prematurely. I felt he had more left to give when he lost to Daniel Cormier in his last UFC light heavyweight title fight. But the heavyweight division now in the UFC, it's extremely thin. Daniel Cormier looks set to retire. John Jones has no desire to move up. Stipe Miocic is coming towards the end, and there's going to be no return of Brock Lesnar in sight. So we're going to need a new name to take over the heavyweight division. I think somebody that could do that is Francis Ngannou. Probably the most powerful puncher we've ever seen in the sport. But one man who can match that would be Anthony Johnson. So if you can get those two in an octagon together for the heavyweight title one day, what a fight that would be. Two men who are built like the Incredible Hulk. It'd be an absolute spectacle, and I can see that doing monstrous pay-per-view vibes. What a fight. If Anthony Johnson can get back in a decent headspace, because we can't have him how he used to fight. He's more of an athlete than he is a fighter. He is a man who doesn't always believe himself. He's built for sport, not necessarily fighting. I hope that he can use what talent he has and maybe see a sports psychologist, get back to winning ways, and maybe, who knows, maybe he can be a dominant force in the heavyweight division. And if John Jones one day does decide to move up, then that's a fight everybody's always wanted to see. Now, moving on to Ryan Bader. He'll be defending his Bellator Heavyweight Championship this weekend at Bellator 226 in San Jose against Cheick Kongo. And I don't want to play this card down, but for me, Ryan Bader's going through the motions a little bit. I think he's far better than anybody in the Bellator Heavyweight division. I don't see anybody really being able to challenge him. Of course, Matt Mitrione, he lost the other week, and the person who beat him, he'll be more than keen to challenge for the title. Vitaly Minakov will be interested. But ultimately, I just think Ryan Bader is so much better than everybody. I think he'll beat Cheick Kongo this weekend purely by knockout. Cheick Kongo in his last fight, he fought of a bit in a negative style, so it wouldn't surprise me if it went to points. But Ryan Bader has to be the favourite, and once he defends the belt, it'll be interesting to see whether he's interested in going back to light heavyweight, because of course there's some decent names there. Gegard Mousasi obviously lost his middleweight title last time out to Rafael Lovato Jr., and either of those men would be an interesting test for Ryan Bader. Or if Lyoto Machida's interested, that could also be a decent fight for him. I think there's more challenges coming in that light heavyweight division, but as we know, heavyweight division is the money-making division, and I think for that reason, he's likely to stay there. Now have a look at some of the comments. Have a feeling Dustin can finish Khabib. It wouldn't shock me. Khabib, as good as he is on the ground, his striking's not the best. And I think he got a lot of praise for when he knocked down Conor McGregor, because obviously even Floyd Mayweather couldn't do that. But when you're thinking so much about the takedowns, strikers often see this as a disadvantage, because when you've got to focus on something, you let what your advantages go by the wayside. So Conor McGregor is so worried about potentially being taken down that he forgets that Khabib can punch as well. So that's just what happened there. Khabib Nurmagomedov would not beat Conor McGregor in a boxing match, and he wouldn't beat Dustin Poirier in a boxing match. So if Poirier's been working on his footwork, maybe he can stay in and out of distance, and hopefully, if you are a Dustin Poirier fan, he can catch Khabib. And if he does, I've said it before, Dustin Poirier can really hit. So yeah, he will get the knockout if that was the case. Barboza versus Felder will be fight of the night guaranteed. Yeah, I think it could be a good one. Both men are in absolutely desperate need of a victory. Felder wants to push on to mix it amongst the big boys. And Barboza, let's face it, if he doesn't get a win this weekend, it's going to be difficult to see where he goes from here. He might even fall out of the top 10. So both men, of course, will do absolutely everything they can to get a victory. And when both men are desperate, we get desperate fights, and it could be an all-out war, this one. It'll be set to entertain. Neither man's going to back down, and I think it really will be a cracker. Got a feeling Dustin will out-wrestle Khabib. That's definitely an interesting perspective. I think Dustin Poirier has got underrated wrestling. He's a very good competitor, but Khabib's one of the best in the world. He trains at that AKA camp. He's got that elite Sambo background, and some people even say that in the gym, he's capable of competing with and sometimes beating Daniel Cormier in the wrestling department. I think Dustin's wrestling is good. I don't think it's good as Khabib. I expect Khabib to probably out-wrestle Dustin. But if the fight goes into the later rounds, we've seen against the likes of Ali Quinter that if Khabib's dragged late, sometimes he can't get the takedowns. Ali Quinter was able to defend them late, so maybe Dustin can do the same. Dustin Impressor versus Gaethje. Yeah, he impressed me very much so. Dustin Poirier is a man who I think a lot of people see as a warrior, but now he's more than that. With the elite wins that he's strung together, he's shown so much improvement in recent times. I was impressed versus Gaethje. I was really impressed with his second performance against Alvarez, but against Max Holloway, that's where he really announced himself to me as an elite competitor in the lightweight division. Most people fancied Max Holloway to get the victory there. He was more than big enough for the 155 division, and Dustin Poirier really put it on him in the first few rounds, nearly got the stoppage, and Max Holloway was a guy who hadn't been beat at the featherweight limit in years, so we have to give Dustin all the credit in the world. He's really impressive, and let's not write him off in this one. Someone needs to tell BJ to stop. Yeah, they do. Not just Dana White, because obviously Dana White's looking at it from a business perspective, but his family and friends need to have a word and say, look, BJ, enough's enough. You're going to get yourself hurt. You're a legend of the sport. You've got nothing left to prove. Please, BJ, call it a day. Did you say Brawl? Potentially. I don't know. BJ struggling to get out of a bra. Yeah, well, I can't tell you about what BJ Penn's cross-dressing habits are. He can only tell you that for himself. What drugs are you on, mate? Yeah. I don't think Khabib will out-wrestle Dustin Poirier. I don't think Dustin Poirier will out-wrestle Khabib either. That's my personal opinion. But everybody's entitled to their own, and on the night we'll find out exactly what's going to happen. It could go either way. I'm looking forward to it. That's all for MMA latest news. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will be back next Tuesday. See you all next time.